the biggest balance for something like this is how can you lean into the humor without cutting down what a dark topic. You don't want to undercut that, but I think there is a balance between the comedy and the drama. I think if you lean in one direction, drama, it just becomes melodramatic, and if you lean too much into the comedy, it just becomes a pure comedy, and then the tone doesn't make sense, especially on Liz's shows. But it's a very fun discovery.
Hi, I'm Gordon Brickell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by editor Nicole Brik, whose work includes the Spiderwick Chronicles, Girls 5 Eva, and more recently, No Good Deed on Netflix. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I always put the R on Eva.
It's a natural, that means that you speak English properly, and that's how it is. It takes a second to catch on, but yeah.
So how did you get involved with No Good Deeds?
No Good Deed. I actually I worked on Dead to Me with the same creator and showrunner. I worked on that show for 3 seasons with her, and we had a really great working relationship. Trust was built, and it was sort of a no-brainer. We actually talked about No Good Deed, I believe, towards the end of the 3rd season of Dead to Me, so I knew it was around the corner, or at least that was in the plan. And yeah, just ended up joining the crew.
When I looked at it, it looks like you guys edited this in blocks, and so I'm wondering, like, how much of the mysteries were divulged to you guys as you were going, or how was it all held back until you got to your episodes? Like, what was the process?
So Liz, she's such a creative writer, and there's always a surprise to me at every single towards the end of every one of her episodes, and including Dead to Me. No, we did not get the scripts, all 8 scripts from the get-go. But I usually tend to not like to read scripts past the first couple of episodes, because I like to be kind of not neutral, but kind of, I don't want to know what's happening. I want the film to tell me what's going on. But they shot on set. Our editorial rooms were right next to the stages, so they would have table reads. So that would be my first exposure to what the next episode was going to be, and that in itself is exciting, because you have the actors performing this. So there was I think when we were reading the penultimate and there was a reveal, I had an audible gasp while we were in the table read, and I had to catch myself because I'm just here in the background, but that's just what her scripts do to me. But as far as like what they shot the pilot actually as a single episode first, because Netflix wanted to first test. They committed to the whole season, but they wanted to make sure that anything that needed to be, if there would need to be any reshoots or anything else in the pilot, we could at least focus on that. So they shot the pilot first. That was the only single episode. And then we had a 2-week production hiatus so that we could focus on the cut while we went to like an audience preview.
I sort of got into VFX by accident. I always had a technical interest in photography, and especially as it relates to movie making. There's something magical about the ability to believe something is happening when it isn't. So I went as a live action producer into a company called Bob Abel and Associates. Then I would have to, have a meeting about how do we do this effect that's in this commercial, and I never got the straight answer I was looking for. I have camera knowledge, so it's like, since it's kind of ambiguous, why don't I just grab a camera and we'll try it out. You have to figure out what tells the story and use every trick in the book to solve your problem. I am Rob Legato, and this is my course on visual effects.
I do. I want to ask you about the humor in it and
Hmm.
sort of finding that balance with the drama and the humor, because there's so many like little almost one-offs or quick lines. Like I think about the Coke scene with the dog at the grooming place, or the racist dog when he
Hmm.
bumps into the person, or the girl in the last episode just being like, "Where's the kitchen?" Just these like little moments that sort
Hmm.
of play out. And I'm wondering, how did you work? Because you want the laugh, but we're dealing with like people dying and like
Of
all this
course.
stuff. So how did you work with the creative team to figure this balance out?
We definitely wanted to embrace the comedy, but we also wanted it to feel grounded and real to the characters, not just for a joke just to throw out a joke, but it every single one that played out was natural to each character. So, and we had so many comedic geniuses on the show that how can you not lean into it? There's a lot of ad libs that ended up living into the final cut because it a was funny, but it also felt natural.
Hmm.
And as far as the drama, yes, we definitely didn't want to take away from that, but the biggest balance for something like this is how can you lean into the humor without cutting down what a dark topic. I don't know if I mean, at this point it's been out for a while, but you're dealing with a death and on top of that a teenager's death. You wanted to you don't want to undercut that, but I think there is a balance between the comedy and the drama. I think if you lean in one direction, drama, it just becomes melodramatic, and if you lean too much into the comedy, it just becomes a pure comedy, and then the tone doesn't make sense. That's always been the challenge, especially on Liz's shows, but it's a very fun discovery.
Now, I know like when I've talked to editors, they don't want to talk about specific cuts because like everything works
Mm-hmm.
together. But I do have a question about when Ray gets his finger cut in the first episode.
Uh-huh.
Like how, because it's quick, it happens really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering like how much was practical in the sense of like here's a dummy finger versus how much was post, work in visual effects and stuff like that. And like how did you work to make it feel? Because it was very upsetting. So
It was real. Ray lost his finger. No,
yeah, yeah.
no. There was so the visual effects part was the actual saw itself.
Okay,
Uh,
interesting.
but what they ended up doing practically is they had a blood spurt that was practical on set that was way too good to do anything digital.
Yeah.
So the cuts themselves, I mean, they're so quick, but enough to give you that, oh my God, it takes your breath away. Like, I can't believe this just happened. But so the movements is just cutting at the right time, and we ended up adding the saw. That one wasn't post. They had a practical one just for a reference,
Yeah.
but the actual action, there was no one was harmed
Well,
in the making.
it's crazy that the blood was practical because I almost felt it was like flipped in the sense of like
Hmm.
saw was real, but they had the blade removed or something, and then the blood was faked or something, which is
It
crazy.
definitely wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
because it actually, like, again, the cheating of how quick the cut was, because it sort of came from camera towards him.
Hmm.
So and it was fast enough where you didn't have to register where if it is it really coming from his finger or not. But I think they might have cheated it a little bit because there might have been a couple of loose drips of blood, but for the most part, most of that was practical.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing that really stood out for me is Lisa Kudrow's performance throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, what were the rushes like? Because, like you said, there's a lot of comedic talent on this, and she's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, did she ad lib stuff, or like how much, I guess, range did you get in the rushes? Like, what was it like working with her?
I mean, again, like, I still can't believe that I had the honor of editing someone like Lisa. I mean, I watch Friends practically every day,
Yeah.
so I'm very familiar with her work in that regard. But also, from The Comeback and Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. So she is an incredible actor. I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with her comedy, but seeing what she does dramatically, um, she, the emoting that she does is so real.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching the dailies and I'm getting emotional without even making a cut, and it was hard making a decision. When do I cut away when she's just so good here,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, she's the dailies have been amazing. And in regards to the comedy portion of it, I there was a lot that stayed from the script, but there was good communication on set with Liz and the writing team. Hey, they're always trying to try something new or to add, maybe let's try something funnier. But even Ray was involved. Like, they both had a conversation as to what they were going to do. Like the scene in the kitchen in the pilot where she's waving her knife or whatever. He's like, no, put it down. That was something I think that they discussed to do it, and it was so good between the
Yeah.
two of them. You have to keep that.
I would love to know, like, what is your process in terms of editing? Because, like, I've talked to different editors, and sometimes it's like I'm very specific. I mark my in and outs and I get my specific part of the
Mm-hmm.
shot. And others are like, I drop everything in that I want and then I slowly chip it down. Like, how do you like to approach a cut when you first get on?
I'm a little maniacal. I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and I feel like I'm still discovering what I'm doing, trying to see, hey, how I'm going to make it efficient. But sometimes, I mean, I watch everything, like, regardless, from pre-action to post cut, because there's always some gems in between that. And I start off for the most part with a kind of a string out sequence if there are funny, especially with the comedy, but specific moments. And sometimes I don't even start from the beginning of the scene. Sometimes there might be a specific moment that I might find mid, and I literally build around that just to get to this point and build it from there. But not necessarily in every single scene. It
Mhm.
just depends. But again, I wish I had a specific method, but I think it's ever changing, and I'm always talking to other editors just to say, hey, what do you do in this circumstance? I'm jealous of the ones who have a who have a downright way of editing, but I've and also script sync has helped also, because there are points where I want to go to a specific line, and get a couple of different reads. And for the most part, when I watch the dailies raw, I have an idea already where
Mhm.
how I wanted to go. But you go back and you're like, well, is there another one? You're like, nope, here we go. Here we go.
Now, I do have a question for Girls Five Eva,
Mm-hmm.
if possible. Um,
Taking me way back.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really liked about it was the jokes per minute, you know, the amount of humor sort of laid out. And I think about like old sitcoms where they would have like, here's the joke, and then we wait for the laughter, and then we move
Mm-hmm.
on. Was there, when you're cutting something like that where it's so fast, is there like discussion about pacing in that sense of like we got to slow things down for the audience to keep up, or is it just let's get this down, people can rewatch the episodes?
I mean, yes, it's a million miles per minute when it comes to the jokes. But I'm also familiar with the creators and uh, how they write and how they've produced previous shows, and knowing
Yeah.
that was a fast pace. That was something that I needed to adapt to, because that was the first um, straight up comedy that I cut. And also, what was difficult during that time was actually during 2020.
Hmm.
And we were working from home, and there was no one to bounce this off of, unless you ask an editor from New York or whatever to, would you mind watching this? But you it was so hard because I like having someone in the room, because there's a vibe that happens when someone's in the room. Like, you think something is solid, and then you're suddenly feeling like, oh, this isn't working. Um, so that was a challenge, but I was familiar specifically with Tina Fey's, because she was one of the executive producers on the show, and most of her shows are so rapid fire jokes, and I go back into 30 Rock right now, and I'm like, oh my god, how did I miss this too? You know what I mean? It's one of these things that when you rewatch, it gets funnier and funnier because you start to clock more things. And that was definitely something to adapt to as an editor.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
No, to jump back to No Good Deed, I'd love to know, like, everyone's got a secret, and in mysteries, it's about doling out that information slowly, and a lot of that comes from the script. But editing, a lot of it that's the final rewrite. We got to restructure things, we got to add things or remove things. So how much did the scripts change from what you were given to the final edit?
There was definitely, we knew how it was going to end. The only change that we really did, I think, was in the finale, because once we revealed who was the shooter, in episode 7, the episode 8 originally started with another flashback. And at this point, I spoke to both the directing producer Silvertree and Liz. I was just like, I don't think this is necessary. We're not getting anything out of this, out of a new flashback, because we already ended on such a, oh my god, what's this discovery that just revealed? Let's just jump into the next episode, because we ended up using some of that flashback to be a new scene itself at the end of the episode, while JD was driving. But as far as like the narrative is concerned, it was pretty set in stone from the beginning. There was no reveal of like, oh my god, is this going to be the different shooter or whatever? But no, it was set in stone.
I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
See, asking that is sort of like revealing your underwear drawer, because you know what? I'm not even going to be ashamed of this. I unfortunately have gone down a deep rabbit hole of reality television, and that sort of gives me a little bit of a palate cleanser by the time that I come home and want to turn off my creative mind. Most recently, though, The Traitors has been my favorite. Is it a guilty pleasure? I don't know. It's definitely pleasurable.
My wife and I watch a lot of reality shows, and she's big into Traitors.
Yeah, it's so good. And
which country do you watch?
I haven't gone to the UK yet. I know that's
the best one.
I hear, and I know, I love that they have real people and not celebrities. But this season, Gabby Windey has taken me by storm. She's so great.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.